All right, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I had a chance to speak to Michael Eric Dyson, professor at Georgetown University and author of The Black Presidency, Barack Obama and the Politics of Race in America. We're going to do part one today and bring you part two of that interview tomorrow. It was fun talking to Michael Eric Dyson. We don't agree on a whole lot, but it was very cordial and very much fun speaking with him. I asked him to start off the whole shebang about the news that the only black presidential candidate in the entire race was apparently dropping out, and that, of course, Ben Carson.
Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, is a sublimely humane individual. We disagree on politics, of course, but he is a man who, like me, from Detroit and was nurtured there. It's kind of ironic that he won't be at the very spot that gave him so much of his identity, but at the same time he's thinking of the broader issue and more humanely and more empathetically about the country at large. So from his political viewpoint, since his candidacy could not quite catch fire and regain the traction it had early on, I think he's making the right decision to step aside and allow the political process to work itself out and to see who emerges on his side of the aisle between Rubio and Cruz and, of course, Donald Trump and perhaps even John Kasich, although I think he's a distant fourth there.
Tavis Smiley wrote a piece at USA Today talking about how black America could be enticed, at least some, by Donald Trump in a general election. Do you believe that Donald Trump would have that appeal and threaten Hillary's black vote to a certain extent, at least?
To a certain extent. I don't think he's going to threaten her in any substantial numbers, but I think what Tavis Smiley said bears repeating, that there are some African-American people who are attracted to Donald Trump, not only the celebrity, not only his history of reaching out to particularly famous and celebrated African-American people and engaging in a kind of appreciation for being name-checked on many rap CDs. He's proud of that. So Donald Trump has a rapport with African-American people, despite the fact, of course, that he was leading the charge of the birthers to denounce President Barack Obama as a native-born American citizen. There's the other side of that ledger as well, that many African-American people have not forgotten and will not soon forgive. But on the other hand, it's undeniable, as Tavis Smiley says, that there are some African-American people who are indeed finding an attraction to Donald Trump, and not just in terms of celebrity, but in terms of his ability to be non-conventional in forging a compact to really change the fate of the nation. So there are some who are buying that particular brand.
All right, let me ask you about Barack Obama. Let me ask you why you believe he didn't go to the funeral of Antonin Scalia. Let me put up something that was said by Reverend Wright in the church's book magazine back in '07, talking about Italians. The Italians, for the most part, look down their garlic noses at the Galileans, and it goes on from there, talking about Jesus, etc. But garlic noses, Italians. Any connection, do you believe, to Obama's, thought process in not going to the funeral of an Italian Supreme Court justice?
No, not at all. I think, those words are unfortunate. And then beyond that, President Obama long ago distanced himself from what he felt to be some of the more troubling aspects of Reverend Wright, who has had an extraordinarily distinguished career, but all people make mistakes and speak their own particular values and virtues across the aisle, left or right. So that had nothing to do, I think, with President Obama not attending the funeral. I can't prognosticate about why or, reflect on why, although I could say that Antonin Scalia was no friend of Barack Obama's in life, and certainly worked on the bench to repudiate many of the achievements, signal achievements of the president that came before the Supreme Court, and was an acidly conservative jurist, reliably for the right wing, but that meant that he made comments and judgments that were quite complicated and in some instances downright troubling and problematic for many African American people. So I think in aggregate, when we look at that, it had nothing to do with any personal animus toward Italian Americans, even though it may be problematic. Barack Obama's favorite film is The Godfather, after all. So even in terms right, look how they massacred my boy. So
great.
That was the problem.
Not a bad imitation, Michael. Not a bad imitation.
Steve, I appreciate that, man. I'm looking for the Oscars not to be so white next year to nominate me for appearance on Steve Malzberg's show in imitation of Marlon Brando. I want that Oscar, man.
All right, folks, part 2 of my interview with Michael Eric Dyson tomorrow. He'll discuss more on Barack Obama, the African-American community, Melissa Harris Perry. He weighs in on her accusations against MSNBC, and a whole lot more. Remember, his book is The Black Presidency, Barack Obama and the Politics of Race in America. Give Me 5 is next.